Good evening. This is my entry into the Boonsky 2014 St. Paddy's Day Contest Extravaganza. I am entering in one video and hoping to earn bonus points with the judges for entering one theme, one project that I believe falls into every single contest category. So Contest 1 requires that it be some sort of artistic endeavor. I believe that what my entry does is quite artistic, and unfortunately I did not capture the process itself on video, but just a little bit of the product of my artistry. The art I'm speaking of is the brewing of beer, in particular, in this case, an Irish red. Quite apt for the contest, I think, and also quite an artistic endeavor. It's an art form in which you have to balance certain elements to create various flavors. You want enough different flavors so that you have complexity, but you don't want too many distinct flavors all fighting for the forefront and muddying the waters, so to speak. So that you have, in the end, one perhaps dominant taste and other background notes which complement it. I hope I have achieved that in the brewing of my Irish red this year. Part 2 of the contest requests that you give a recipe for something that you like to cook for consumption on St. Patrick's Day. There's a lot of cooking involved with beer, lots of pots, lots of hours of boiling, lots of heating, lots of cooling, and mixing of ingredients, and picking out recipes, and so forth. So my recipe will be provided. Part 2, therefore, I believe qualifies for my video. Part 3 requires you to drink a beer. This is where I probably fit in the best, as the Irish red I have has recently been bottled, and I took a sample to slam, if we can call it that, and you'll see video of that in just a moment. So having parts 1, 2, and 3 done, I'll commence afterward with part 4 and the history of the style of Irish red ale. Cheers. You can see the recipe here. It's loosely based on Jamil's recipe, perhaps more tightly based. This is actually, though, made not as an Irish red ale, but as an Irish red lager. And you can see the temperature there is at 46. It's been sitting a bit colder than that for a while to smooth out the flavor, give it a really clean malt flavor, as a good Irish red should have. It's something that's usually brewed as an ale, but can be brewed as a lager. So I went ahead and did that. And here's what it looks like inside. You can see the yeast Croissant ring around the outside where there was a head on it while it was fermenting. And then here I'm just going to pull up a bit of a sample. You look here, you can see that it's nice and clear. See the fingers through it. And now it's time to slam. Yeah, it's really not much of a slam, but it sure tastes good. Cheers. Here at the end of packaging, I've got a half-empty bottle, so I might as well enjoy that one. And I'll be back with a book report on the history of Irish red. If we begin in the present, we'll note that the Beer Judge Certification Program in its style guidelines lists as a current craft beer style of Irish red examples such as Mullings Irish Red, Smithwick's Irish Ale, Kilkenny Irish Beer, Beamish Red Ale, Caffrey's Irish Ale, Goose Island's Red Ale, Murphy's Irish Red, which is brewed as a lager, as well as Boulevard Irish Ale and Harpoon Hibernian Ale. Most popular probably being Smithwick's, which is listed second in their list of examples that define the style. Now, if we look back into history, it is possible that this is a style that does not go back very far. In fact, it may have actually been introduced as a style with the beer that's not really considered an Irish Red according to modern definitions, Killian's Irish Red. Killian's was produced by Coors Brewing Company as an amber-colored lager. It was supposedly based off the recipe of a ruby ale from Let's Brewery. This ruby ale was probably not too close to what Coors has produced as that beer since 1981. Production was halted at the Let's Brewery in 1956, so they just sold off the recipe to Coors in 1981, and that's fairly young for a beer style. Ron Pattison, who writes Shut Up About Barclay Perkins, has written several posts which he speaks of a lack of history of this style. He believes that it was really just a British cask bitter, a type of light pale ale that is a little darker in color and just was under-hopped and didn't have as much hops as a standard British bitter, which would make sense to some degree. It's very similar in composition. In fact, in my very recipe, I brewed most of the beer together as one batch with a British bitter, and then I split the recipe in two at a certain point in the process and was able to add more hops to the bitter to make it bitter and have more hop flavor, and add a little bit of caramel malt there as well. And then for the Irish Red, I added roasted barley, which gives it its chocolate notes, very slight roasted chocolate notes in reddish color. In larger amounts, roasted barley is what gives the deep coffee chocolate taste and super dark color to a stout, such as Guinness. So that's one guess as to where this came from, because, as he notes, it was very popular in Ireland to drink stouts and porters, but also to drink British imported bitters. And so the style, therefore, may have just been a way in which the Irish kind of brewed a pale ale and maybe let the hops drop out a little bit, as an Irish Red is not nearly as bitter as a standard bitter would be. On the other hand, there is some inkling we have that, especially being purchased from a recipe called ruby ale, that it may have been related to a mild ale that was brewed in Ireland. A mild ale is a style of a very light brown ale, very light in body and in alcohol and flavor, but still a brown ale, so having a darker color possibly than a bitter. So the history of the Irish Red is that there's some possibility of either being the case, that it perhaps developed somewhere along the lines and was not produced very often as a specific style unto itself, but possibly produced somewhat as a derivative of pale ales that were brewed in Ireland in the English style, or possibly as a mild ale, because there is some historical evidence to suggest that this was also the case. So there you have it. That's the history of the Irish Red. Hope you found this enjoyable. Judges, I hope you vote for me. And if you're ever in the southeastern Pennsylvania area, especially near this St. Patrick's Day, drop me a note, and perhaps you can swing by and try some of my product. Cheers.